with this wonderful idea that let's walk to Moscow, to Paris, to London, and to Washington, D.C., the 4 nuclear capitals of the world at that time. And we felt very happy. So, wow, let's do it. We'll walk to Moscow, Paris, London, Washington. And then we went to see our teacher, Vinoba Bhave, and he said, if you are going for peace in the world, do you know how the wars begin? Where are the seeds of war? Seeds of war are in fear. Fear is the soil of war. And where does peace begin? In trust. So you don't have to just talk about peace, you have to be peace. And how do you be peace? You have to trust. And how do you trust people? Go on your walk to Moscow, Paris, London, Washington without a penny in your pocket. I said, wow, any money? No money at all? He said, no money at all. Then you have to trust people. You have to trust yourself. You have to trust God. You have to trust the universe. You have to trust whatever happened. You have to surrender your fear. And you have to surrender your mistrust. And you have to surrender your planning of where I'm going to eat my dinner and where I'm going to get my bed for the night. You have to surrender. I said, wow, you are our guru. You are our teacher. We have to do what you tell us. And so we left all our money, and from the grave of Mahatma Gandhi, my friend and I started walking, step by step, day by day, for 1 month in northern India, through the Punjab, and then 1 month in Pakistan, and then over the Khyber Pass and Afghanistan, and we came to Iran, and then we came to Azerbaijan, and then we came to Armenia. And as we were walking, we saw 2 beautiful young mothers, workers, standing in front of a tea factory. And so we were distributing leaflets about peace. And we gave our leaflet, and which leaflet this explains why we are walking, where we are going, why we have no money, why we depend on hospitality, all the explanation in Russian language. And these 2 Russian-speaking women read it. I said, stop, stop. Have you really walked all the way from India to Armenia? I said, yes, we have. Said, please, would you like a cup of tea? You have no money. I read in your flyer, you have no money. Maybe you want a little lunch. We have a canteen in our tea factory. We are just working here. We have a lunch break. So I said, all right. Any time is tea time. So we went in and we sat down around a table, and one of the women had a brainwave. She went out of the room and came back with 4 packets of tea. And she said, you know, you are going to Moscow, Paris, London, Washington. I would like you to meet our Premier, the President of France, the Prime Minister of England, and the President of the United States of America. And please give them a packet of tea. And this is no ordinary tea. So my heart, from my message to them, it's a peace tea. And will you give a message to them from me? I said, what is your message? She said, my message to them is that if you ever get a mad thought of pressing the nuclear button, please stop for a moment and have a fresh cup of tea. And that will give you time to reflect and think that these weapons are not only kill your enemies, but they will kill, your weapons will kill all men, women, children, workers, animals, plants, forests, lakes, rivers, everything will be destroyed. These weapons are not useful. They are not for using. Please give them this message. Can you imagine my heart throbbing? And I was so inspired. I was so touched by this woman's message. And I said, now to my friend, I said, whatever happens, we have to deliver these packets of peace tea and ask these 4 leaders to make tea and not war. That's where the title of my talk this afternoon comes. The Make Tea, Not War. And so we walked from to Moscow, and then we arrived and we went to the Kremlin, and we received a letter from Khrushchev, and we were received by the President of the Supreme Soviet in the Kremlin. And he showed us around the Kremlin, and he showed us the room where Lenin lived, and all this wonderful. It's a very gorgeous building. It's tremendous from the time of the Tsars and time of all the rulers of Russia. It's a tremendous place. We enjoyed walking. But then we sat down, and he offered us a cup of tea as well, but not from that packet. But we gave him the packet of peace tea, and we said, please, because at that time, Armenia was part of Soviet Union. Say, your countrywoman has given us this message. Say, oh yes, 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 we are for peace. Russia, yes, or Soviet Union lost millions of people in the Second World War. And therefore, we don't want war. But it's the Americans. Why are you walking and troubling yourself into Russia? We are all for peace. Go to America, go to England, go to France. They are the people who are problem. I said, no. Blaming somebody else is no good. You have to show that you are truly for peace, and therefore discard your bombs. Whether America does, what America does, or England does, or France does not matter. You have to show, set the example. The example speaks louder than any words. No. They have to do it first. So, all right, we gave them a packet of peace tea, and then we walked through Smolensk and Belorussia and Poland and Germany and Belgium and France. And by the time we arrived in France, the whole story is long. I'm just giving you one story of this walk. And as you heard my story, there are lots and lots of beautiful stories in this journey. And there is a book, I think there is a book there called No Destination. And that book has all the stories in it. But we arrived in France, and at that time, fortunately, good news was that United States of America, England, and Russia, or the Soviet Union at that time, they signed the Test Ban Treaty. But France, under the presidency of de Gaulle, refused. He said, I'm not signing Test Ban Treaty. We want to continue building nuclear weapons and test and test and test more and more and more weapons. So we phoned the Palace Élysée and we said, we have got a packet of peace tea for President de Gaulle. Can we meet him? He said, no. President doesn't like anybody who talks about peace and disarmament and nuclear test ban. He doesn't like anybody, and he has no time. I said, but we have to deliver this packet of peace tea because we are carrying all the way from Armenia, thousands of miles, a message with wonderful mother. He said, no. President will not see you. Complete and blank no. So we said, what should we do now? How do we deliver this packet of peace tea? So we gathered 15 or 20 peace activists of France, French activists. Wonderful. We had a wonderful time in France. So these activists came and we made a banner, big banner. Ban the bomb, sign the nuclear test ban treaty, and meet the messengers and peace walkers and peace pilgrims from India. And we went in front of Palace Élysée, standing there. And the police came and said, do you know it's illegal to protest against and demonstrate in front of Palace Élysée. So please move away, otherwise we'll arrest you. He said, you arrest us? And we were arrested. And we were put in jail. And we were saying, all right, we are following in the footsteps of Bertrand Russell. He went to jail for protesting against the nuclear weapons. So we are doing the same. So we were happy. But then after 3 days, the chief of the police came to our prison cell to meet us and said, look, either you move on, President is not going to meet you. We have consulted his office. He's not going to meet you. Either you move on or we deport you back to India. So, and then Indian ambassador with him, Indian ambassador to France with the police officer. And the Indian ambassador said, look, you don't want to go back to India, deported back to India. You want to carry on to London and to Washington. So you have done your protest. Why don't you give this packet of peace tea to this chief of the police and ask him to deliver on your behalf to President's office? I said, all right, we don't want to be deported to India. You are absolutely right, Mr. Ambassador. So we will deliver this. So we gave this packet of peace tea to the chief of the police, and he promised that he will deliver to Palace Élysée. And then we carried on, and then these French peace activists helped us to cross the channel from Calais to Dover, and then we walked from Dover to London. And then we met Bertrand Russell, and we were so happy to meet him. And he was now 92. And he said to me, to us, that when you wrote to me from India 2 years ago, I thought, oh, I'm 90, you are walking from India, it will be a slow job. I never see you. I might be dead by then. But you have walked fast. And so he was delighted. And we had a long conversation, and my conversation with Bertrand Russell are recorded in my book, You Are Therefore I Am, and also some mention in my book, No Destination. And so then he said, well, all right, after all this discussion about war and peace and non-violence and purpose of peace, lots of good ideas and good discussion. Because we coming from India had a different idea about peace. Because for me, peace is not only an absence of war. Peace is a way of life, a non-violent, compassionate, harmonious way of life. And so after all that discussion, he said, but you want to go to Washington? You have no money. How are you going to get there? You are not going to walk on water. Can I give you some money so that you can fly? So we said, Lord Russell, we have not touched money for 2 years. So we cannot touch money. That's our vow. But if you and your fellow peace activists can help us with 2 tickets, not in the plane, because we don't want to fly, from walking to flying, but there are boats going. In those days, boats were going. So we would like to travel by boat. And so Bertrand Russell and many other activists, they put some money together, and they got us 2 tickets in the Queen Mary boat. So we walked in the boat, because the boat is very big. We walked into the boat and over the above and higher and lower and upper deck and lower deck, and lots of walking. And 7 days of walking in the boat and sailing across the Atlantic, and we arrived in New York. And we walked from New York to Washington, and we were received in Washington, D.C. by the representative of the White House, the President. And of course, by the way, we delivered packet of peace tea in 10 Downing Street. That happened. And we delivered a 4th packet of peace tea to the President of the United States of America, to his representative in the White House. We were received in the White House. And then we thought that as we started our journey from the grave of Mahatma Gandhi in New Delhi, we will end our journey at the grave of John F. Kennedy. To make the point that if you believe in the gun, a gun not only kills a bad person, a criminal, but a gun also kills a Gandhi, a Kennedy. And therefore you have to shift your trust from the gun to non-violence and peace. And so we ended our journey at the grave of John F. Kennedy. And then we thought that, like we met Bertrand Russell in England, we must meet Martin Luther King in the United States. Because he is the greatest symbol of peace and non-violence. And that great speech when he marched to Washington and made a great speech of, I have a dream. Only peacemakers can have a dream. The war makers always have a nightmare. And so I have a dream. And so we wrote to him and say that we have walked from India. And he wrote us back and say, yes, I read about your walk in Washington Post. And yes, I would be delighted to meet you. Come, come. And so we went to meet him in Atlanta, Georgia. And that was one of my highest point, highlight of my life, that meeting that wonderful man of peace, a wonderful man of total harmony. He said, non-violence is not a tactics, non-violence is not a strategy, non-violence is not only to protest, non-violence is a way of life, it's a mindset, it's a kind of philosophy of life. And therefore, we have to live non-violence, then we can use non-violence to protest. So that was a wonderful message from Martin Luther King. So this way then, we were invited from America to Japan. And one of the Buddhist master there, Buddhist teacher called Fuji, he wrote to us, care of Indian Embassy in Washington, and said, if you are a peace pilgrim, how can you finish your peace pilgrimage without making pilgrimage to Hiroshima? Because Hiroshima is the only, and Nagasaki, Japan is the only country which has suffered the terrors of nuclear weapons, a nuclear attack. And therefore, we will send our monks with you. Make a pilgrimage to Hiroshima. He said, that's a wonderful idea. Why not? Why not? So we came to Japan, and we came to Tokyo, and from Tokyo for 45 days we walked to Hiroshima. And 4 Buddhist monks with their drum, Nam-myoho Renge-kyo drum, and they walked with us. And along the way, because Buddhists have lots of contacts, along the way thousands of people lining and coming to our talks and wonderful events and hospitality. And so we walked 45 days to Hiroshima and met many hibakusha, which are the victims of the nuclear attack. Still victims, even the children, the grandchildren are suffering from the effects of nuclear catastrophe on Hiroshima. And then after 45 days of walking to Hiroshima, we took a boat helped by the Japanese Buddhists and pacifists and peace activists to India. And so 2.5 years of this around the world journey, and with this message of make tea, not war. And that was 2.5 years of experience made my life. I feel that by walking, and quite often I walked bare feet. When there was a dirt track or grassy track, I walked bare feet. Only when there was a tarmac, when I wore the shoes, because tarmac is too hard to walk without shoes. But on kacha path, we call it, which is a kind of dust track or footpaths, we walked bare feet. And hospitality all around the world, everywhere, Muslims, Christians, Jews, rich, poor, blacks, whites, everywhere we received hospitality. And occasionally, of course, if we did not get food, then we will say, this is our opportunity to fast. And when we did not have a shelter to sleep, we sleep outdoor under the stars. We will say, we are enjoying the million-star hotel. Who cares for 5-star hotel? And so this way, for 2.5 years, my friend and I did this journey of peace. So if you want to read more, you can read in the book, No Destination, and You Are Therefore I Am. But if you have any questions, I'll be delighted to answer. Thank you very much for coming to this Schumacher College tent and listening to me. Thank you.